Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a video on adapting your teaching style as well as giving appropriate feedback. So the first subject we're going to be covering is going to be adapting your teaching style. So Mo, if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Adapting your teaching style is like looking at it is like the VARC if you think about it. If you remember the four letters,
Visual, auditory, read, write, and kinesthetic, which is like action doing.
Excellent. Now the demonstration, the best one that I use with my guys and girls, with my pupils, I should say, sorry. The best one that I use with my pupils is like, imagine giving you a microwave. First of all, finding out how they will learn their best styles. So imagine if I gave you a boxed microwave, what would you do to set this microwave up? To find out the style, would A, read the instructions, B, put on a video and watch this video, C, turn the video on but listen to just the audio, or C, kind of whack it in the plug and just try it that way. Now, when you think about things like that, it's very important to also make the student understand now that's a microwave, a small little appliance. Now, if you're building a massive double wardrobe, how would you do that now?
Yeah, if it's from IKEA, definitely need the instructions.
You need the instructions.
Yeah.
Not only that, you need a second pair of hands, don't you? So you need somebody else's support to help you. Always remember, even though that's their style, there must be other ways you can go around. Like sometimes a demonstration might come in handy, even though they're thinking, oh yeah, they're kinesthetic, but that demonstration on a roundabout, as an example, changing the style, will probably benefit them a lot more with them sitting in the car instead of watching the video, you actually doing it. Will make more sense to them visually. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's not always ideal, for example, for a kinesthetic learner to do something that could be dangerous.
Of course, obviously, yeah, absolutely, sorry, you're absolutely right. Or the other thing you can think about is something like a commentary drive. Do you know what I mean? So whilst you're doing this demonstration for them, if you jumped in and did that demonstration,
talk
yourself through, tell them what you're doing. That's a very important thing to remember.
So obviously there we touched on VARC. So VARC is basically your student's learning style. So we sort of went over it there. Visual, which could be someone who likes seeing a diagram or a demonstration. And then we have auditory, which could be, for example, me and Mo are in a car and he's giving me the instructions on how to do something, as you've seen in previous videos. It could be that they are a reader or a writer, so you may have a pupil that likes taking notes. I know that my mum personally is someone that enjoys taking her notes.
She does indeed.
Yeah. And then we also have a kinesthetic learner, that is someone that likes doing something. So the way that they might learn is by letting them try something while you're guiding them, such as a manoeuvre like forward bay or reverse bay park. So the next point is encouraging self-reflection on your pupils. So Mo, if you can give us a little bit of a rundown on what that means.
Okay, self-assessment basically means if you're at the start of the lesson, for example, let's think about the grading when it comes to grading your students. At the start of the lesson, your pupil, whatever subject you choose to do, and your pupil will grade themselves at the beginning of the lesson to see where they're at before they even do the subject.
Yeah.
Now, you also want them to grade where they want to be at the end of the lesson, as an example. It's always best to do a self-assessment in between as well, in the middle of the lesson, to see where your pupils got.
How they think they're progressing.
How they think they're progressing, because it's very important to know that's them self-assessing themselves based on the lesson. The other thing you want to be thinking about is like not just the grading, think about mistakes. Now, if a pupil was to make a mistake, how would you get your student to self-evaluate that critical instant that could have happened? Yeah. That's them assessing themselves as well.
Yeah, so rather than you sort of telling them why that mistake happened, you're sort of encouraging them like, okay, why do you think that mistake happened, and how can we avoid it?
That's it,
in the future?
It's like we've done in our previous videos as well about on risk management.
Yeah.
It's like when we pointed out the fact that what you just mentioned is getting your student to identify their mistake. That's them assessing that mistake. But always, like I mentioned before, it's like the root cause. Always find out what the root cause is. When you're assessing something like that, you've got to make sure the root cause is correct. For example, if you were turning right and you went in too fast, but we cut the corner, now what could that have been? A lot of people put down speed. Was it the fact that he got his right reference for turning?
Yeah.
Was there enough steering? So these are the points to look at. Yeah, the approach speed was probably one of the factors, but think about
Wasn't
less.
the defining factor.
But yeah, but like you mentioned, you don't get this. You don't tell the student. You get them to analyze. You also use other people's mistakes to your advantage, getting the pupil to analyze what could have happened potentially, so they don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah,
If that makes
like
sense.
using other people on the road as an example. Like,
That's
okay,
it.
why, you know, that person's just cut out in front of us. Why could that have been dangerous? I
That's
guess as
it.
an example.
Yeah.
So linking back to the grading system, obviously everyone's going to give themselves different grades, and from my understanding, the numbers not really as important as knowing what they want out of the lesson. So, for example, if I wanted a 6. It's important for you to realise what the 6 is to that learner, because the 6 to you might be me able to do the turn independently, but
Yeah.
to me it could be completely
You're
different.
absolutely right there. That's why it's very important when the learner says to you whatever number they give you they want to be. It's always best to ask, what does that mean to you? What does that mean, or what does that look like to you? What's the end result?
Yeah.
And then you then it goes into help and all of that. But we mentioned that in the video before. But that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the grading. So it's very important to ask. You're absolutely right. What it actually means to that learner, because
Yeah. 6 is just a number, but
It's
we're
just a
more
number.
interested in where they want to
Yeah.
be.
But it's always important to evaluate. When you evaluate the lesson, you evaluate it on the actual lesson.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to be a 6, but unfortunately they're not a 6, how would
Yeah.
you do that?
Yeah, after the lesson you can't change it, but during the lesson you have a chance to sort of correct it. For
That's it.
Yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense. So we briefly mentioned there about using examples to your learner, as we mentioned, you know, using other people on the roads examples of something that is good or bad to do, and making them think about how their actions may affect other people. So the next part that we're going to mention is using technical information. So again, Mo's going to give us a little bit more information on what
So
that means.
yeah, of course, yeah, by all means. Yeah, technical information is something like, for example, imagine if you're in a manual car. Now the technical information around it is a clutch pedal as an example, telling your learner what it actually does. Now when you bring up the clutch pedal, it meets with the engine and the engine speed. Do you know what I mean? So things like that is very important, so your learner's got a basic understanding about the biting point, the flywheel and whatever, the way it works.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
So the next part of sort of adapting your teaching style and giving appropriate feedback is giving timely feedback. So Mo, can you give us a little bit more of an in-depth description on what that means?
Yeah, of course, yeah, it's very important to give your pupil timely feedback when necessary, whether that be changing a subject. Because, as you can imagine, if you're my learner, we're doing the same subject, and you decided to do junctions and turning right as an example, within the first 10-15 minutes you've got that subject. It's very important now that I give you timely feedback, where if I continue that throughout the lesson and give you feedback at the end, it would be a waste, because you've done it within 10 minutes of the lesson. Not only that, it could knock your confidence. It could also get you bored doing the same thing over and over again. It's very important to pull over to give timely feedback, whether that be on a subject, whether that be if they've done an incident that's put you, yourself, or somebody else at risk. It's very important timely feedback, because you've got to remember, speaking about that now, if you had done an incident where I had to use my dual brake as an example, I wouldn't leave it for the next 10 minutes to pull you up to speak about it. The sooner I do it, the better. Now the reason for that is you might have forgotten, or other things could have happened within that time.
Yeah.
So timely feedback on a lesson is very important.
So obviously leading on from that quite well is answering any questions that a pupil has. So Mo, give us a little bit of an explanation as to why that's important.
It's very important when answering pupils' questions. You give out the correct information. That's why you need to stay on top of your theory, as an example. Because remember, with doing this, you're coming on board to become driving instructors. It's not a tick box exercise like some learners take it. So this is a career option, a career path that you've chosen to take.
Yeah.
So it's very important. Any answers to any questions have to be correct. There may be an occasion where you probably don't know the answer to the question. The best thing to do is tell the learner, okay, we'll find out at the end of your lesson, or if they want to know there and then, do it there and then. The best way to do that is to carry the highway code around with you, to be honest with you, in your car, in your glove compartment. So if there is a question that you don't know the answer to, you can pull it out and there, read it. It doesn't mean that you're a bad instructor looking at a highway code to
Yeah,
get
of
the answer.
course.
It just shows you're giving out, you've gone that extra mile. The
Yeah,
client
to
is-
give the correct
to give the correct
information.
answer. Because the last thing you want is for me to tell you something, you go home, tell your parents or partner or whatever.
They go, no, that's
and
not
that's
right.
not
yeah.
right. Hang on a minute, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? The instructor doesn't know what they're talking about, so the best thing to do is move. So that's the way. Best thing to do is always be correct.
Correct, yeah.
Correct with the answers.
And I guess also it's addressing pupils' concerns as well. If they're worried about anything on the lesson, you can address that.
Of course.
So, and then one of the final ones is giving a reflective debrief at the end of the lesson. So, give us a little bit more information about what that entails.
So reflective debrief is getting the learner to analyse the actual lesson themselves. That's very important. Again, we're going to bring in the grading that we mentioned before, getting them to grade themselves, now getting that to reflect the lesson I mentioned before. It's like, imagine if you were a 6, you said you were a 6, but you weren't a 6. Now, how would I get you to change that? The easiest way of doing it is by asking simple questions. So what went well in today's lesson? What didn't go so well in today's lesson? So analysing both performance. Because what usually happens is that the learner tends to basically look at the positives, not the negatives, but you want them to look at both and combine them together, then change their overall score. Not only that, when it comes to the reflective brief at the end as well, the debrief, sorry, at the end, is getting the learner to make sure they're going away and analysing their faults, encourage them, to make time to analyse. It's very important we do that, because if you do that, your learner's going to benefit from it, and then it'll help you a lot too.
Yeah, it'll help them on lessons. And I guess that's the whole point of the lesson summary at the end of the lesson. The emails that are sent out as well. It's all to encourage
self-analysis. And then you've got planning the next lesson, so giving them time as well to go and research for the next subject. Because don't just throw it on the day that this is what we're doing today and expecting them to know the knowledge. Exactly.
Yeah.
Where if you're giving them that advance notice, like this is what we're going to be doing on our next lesson, this is what we plan to do, what are you going to go away and research and to do? We've got a lot of Smart Learner videos up as well now, so they can encourage them to go onto the Smart Learner website to see these videos. You've also got the web page as well where they can actually go on the theory and stuff, so they can do all of that. Do you know what I mean? So the tools are there, and it's very important that us as instructors, Smart Learning instructors, we utilise this all with our learners.
Yeah, definitely.